I'm conscious it's just a minute after 2 o'clock, so can we get this afternoon's meeting underway? Can I welcome everybody along to this remote meeting of North Lanarkshire Council? Before we go to the business of the meeting, I would like to remind you of the functionality which will assist in the smooth running of the meeting. Unless you're speaking, can all members please ensure that your microphone is muted? If you've declared an interest in a particular item of business, the clerk will remove you from the meeting to the lobby and reinstate you once that item of business has been dealt with. Can I remind members that if you wish to declare an interest during the meeting, please type in DEC in the chat bar and hit return. If you wish to raise a point of order, please type in PO in the chat bar and hit return. What I will remind members is Standing Order 46 defines what a point of order is. The last two meetings we've seen quite a lot of points of order which are not genuine points of order. Please only use that if it is a genuine point of order. If you wish to ask a question, please hit the space bar in the chat bar and then press enter, and the clerk will notify me of the order of the speakers for each individual item. Please do not use the chat bar for any other purpose. Colleagues, I would like to inform you that the meeting is being live streamed through the Council's YouTube channel and is publicly available. If the meeting needs to be adjourned for any reason, the stream will stop and a new stream will commence when the meeting resumes. In addition, the meeting will be available afterwards as an archived recording. Colleagues, this is the annual budget setting meeting, and as has been in the practice in previous years, I am willing to be flexible on the timing of speeches for the mover and the seconder of the motions and the amendments in respect of agenda item 2. Each speaker may speak for 10 minutes. Yesterday marked the 1-year anniversary of the first case of COVID in Scotland. Can I ask if we could observe a minute's silence to remember all those who died as a result of COVID? Can I thank everyone very much for that? I have a note of apologies from Councillors Catherine Johnston and Councillor Hogg. Are there any other apologies?
Provost, can I submit an apology for Councillor Morgan, please?
Thank you very much. Agenda item 1 is declarations of interest in terms of ethical standard in public life Scotland. Are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. Agenda item 2 is the revenue budget for 2021-2022 to 2023-2024 and the council tax for 2021-2022. This is a report by the Head of Financial Solutions providing financial information that enables the council to set its 2021-22 council tax and revenue budget, 2021-22 to 23-24. I will now ask Elaine Kemp to take us through this report.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, everyone. As is normal practice on budget setting meeting, I don't plan to talk through the report, given that its contents and the figures contained within it are well known to elected members, having been the subject of much discussion over recent weeks. I'm, however, happy to take any questions on the report, Provost.
Provost, in the chat bar, Councillor Feeney's indicated she wishes to come in for the Councillor Logue.
Councillor Feeney. Councillor Feeney.
Hi there. Before the meeting goes any further, I would like assurances that no councillor would feel threatened and be told that they had to be safeguarded regarding the way they vote today. Thanks.
There'll be no councillor in the meeting. Is there any questions for Elaine on her report? We'll then move on to A. I'm conscious Councillor Logue's put up a motion there, but first of all, I'm going to call on Councillor Logue to put forward a proposal for the council tax. Councillor Logue.
Yes, Provost. Having read the budget report prepared by the Section 95 officer and fully recognising the legal requirement to bring in a balanced budget, I would move that the council tax rate for the financial year 2021-22 should be frozen at 2020-21 rates. I will make further reference to this when moving the motion later.
I'll second that, Provost. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask if there are any amendments to this. However, these amendments should be specifically about council tax only, as we will deal with the options of the balance of the budget under the next item. I don't see anybody wanting to come in that, so there will be no council tax rise this year. Can we move on to the revenue budget under B? We will now move on to options to balance the budget. I will call upon the leader of the council to put forward his motion. Councillor Logue.
Thank you very much, Provost. This year's budget, colleagues, is a budget like no other. In March 2020, I moved the Labour budget for North Lanarkshire with no inclination as to what was about to hit us. COVID-19 has wreaked havoc in our communities, claiming lives, livelihoods, and some of our most vulnerable people. It is right that we remember them at the beginning of this meeting this afternoon. Our thoughts will always stay with those families who have lost loved ones during the pandemic. Despite the tragedies, difficulties, and uncertainty, this council, led by our dedicated staff, have been a beacon of hope for so many and working tirelessly to support our communities, businesses, and the most vulnerable, all whilst no doubt carrying their own fears and anxieties. It's important that we place on record our thanks to all of them, and I believe every member on this call today would endorse this sentiment. Provost, it would be naive of me to pretend that the Labour budget I move today is anything other than a COVID budget. But I am determined that it is a COVID recovery budget, and at this stage I want to acknowledge the positive impact made by additional one-off allocations which have come from the UK Parliament as a result of the Barnett consequentials, amounting nationally to £9.7 billion, and the one-off additional funding from the Scottish Government to North Lanarkshire Council of over £30 billion. However, in order to address the ongoing presenting issues caused by the pandemic and to support a return to a new form of normality in a post-pandemic environment, there is a critical need to baseline these one-off fundings for future years. We all recognise that our communities have been ravaged by this virus, and it's vital that we stand ready to help them on the road to recovery. As part of this, I'm sure that all members recognise that the decision we have collectively taken on setting the council tax will be widely welcomed. Whilst I fully appreciate the Scottish Government's financial support of £4.6 million this year to freeze council tax for our residents, I do have some concerns that this may lead to greater rises in the future unless the SNP government baseline this funding. I hope that this additional finance is a genuine attempt to help hard-working families rather than a piece of political posturing before a Scottish parliamentary election. I want to reiterate once again what I have stated time and again, that cuts to councils are cuts to communities, and that was never more apparent than this year. However, as a result of the sound financial management of this council, we are in a position today not to introduce any further cuts, to protect all frontline services, retain all of our community and leisure facilities, and protect jobs with no compulsory redundancies. Despite this, it is clear that over the next 3 years, we will have to find some £57 million as a result of the SNP's budget statement. I would therefore implore every councillor at this meeting today to do all they can to secure a fairer budget deal over the coming weeks, so we are not in a position next year of having to cut the jobs and services we are attempting to protect today. No doubt we will also hear about funding which has been given to local authorities to deliver on national priorities set by the SNP government. This funding is of course welcome, but as I have said previously, this is the very same money that has been cut from the council's core budget to pay for frontline jobs and services such as roads, schools and environmental services. It is important to remember that this is not additional funding, but rather funding given to councils with strings attached, the very concept which the SNP criticises the Westminster government for. However, this administration is committed, despite the difficult budget outlook over the next 3 years, to invest in the future of North Lanarkshire. And it is only through the actions of this administration that we are in a position to offer our COVID recovery budget today. Bob Burrows, who will second the motion, will go into further details later. Throughout the last year, our resolve has been tested, but our council has weathered the storm. In a year like no other, we have managed to maintain frontline services, protect jobs, and support businesses as they struggle to survive. It would be easy then to focus solely on keeping the lights on and regrettably to lose sight of the ambition and drive we have for this council. But Provost, I am determined that as leader of this administration, I will not let that happen, which is why I move our Labour budget today, which protects facilities, jobs and businesses across North Lanarkshire, and also delivers record investment in new homes, schools and new community hubs, all of which is contained in the written budget motion which has been sent to individual members, and all of which will be reported to the Policy and Strategy Committee later this month. For the first time in the history of North Lanarkshire Council, we have undertaken very focused and interactive consultation engagement with community groups and community boards in asking them to highlight their budget priorities. All elected members will have received a very detailed report on the outcome of this engagement, and this administration has, wherever possible, attempted to incorporate some of the concerns and issues articulated as part of this consultation. Resulting from this, we will be investing additional sums in our environment, roads, pest control services, fly tipping and other issues which were flagged up consistently during the consultation. In addition to this, we will also be delivering groundbreaking new policies like the Early Years Clothing and Footwear Grant and other anti-poverty strategies. Provost, I started my remarks today with an acknowledgement that this year has been a year like no other that I have experienced as an elected member, and I think that would be a sentiment articulated by others. But I firmly believe that this administration, this council, has risen to the occasion and produced a COVID recovery budget like no other. I move the motion.
Thank you very much. The motion has been emailed out to everybody. The intention will be, as the speakers come on, whether it's the amendments, they will be emailed out, and the proposal would be that we could have a short break after all the motion and any amendments are there to have a chance to have a look over them. Councillor Burrows.
Provost, I'm delighted to second the Labour Group motion and go through some detail on our budget proposals, but it's important to make some comments first. It's right to emphasise again what the leader has just stated. This year is a year like no other, and I believe that the COVID recovery budget we're proposing today recognises that fact. Provost, we are proud that throughout our time in administration, this group has never implemented a single compulsory redundancy. Our staff are our biggest asset, even more so this year than ever before, which is why, once more, there are no compulsory redundancies in this Labour budget. In all my years as convener of finance, one of the biggest challenging and facing continuous budget cuts from Edinburgh is having to decide which services to prioritise. With so much of our budget ring-fenced and legally required to be spent on certain areas, quite often it's our public-facing services that take the hit. Provost, we recognise that we have some much-loved facilities across North Lanarkshire. Our libraries and sport and community facilities are always a contentious issue at budget time, as these are rightfully cherished by our communities. The pandemic has meant that these facilities have not been able to be used to their full potential. As we begin our COVID recovery, these spaces will be vital in bringing our communities together once more, which is why I'm pleased to be able to say today that this Labour budget contains no closure to any library, community or sports facility in North Lanarkshire. Provost, time and time again we hear from our constituents about the state of our roads, cemeteries and sightings of vermin. We understand the frustration of our communities when these services don't live up to their expectations. But with almost £300 million now having cut from our budget, it becomes more and more difficult to get that right. Despite this, I'm pleased to give the commitment today that we will invest significant money to repair our roads, plus £250,000 to improve our cemeteries, £150,000 to tackle pest control across North Lanarkshire. This is in addition to a £500,000 investment in a Recovery NL task force, which will tackle the scourge of littering and fly tipping in our communities. Provost, that's almost £2 million of investment that our constituents say that are the most important issues to them. We are determined that our COVID recovery budget not only protects jobs and services, but invests in our economic recovery. Our young people have perhaps been hardest hit by the pandemic, and educational loss has had a seismic effect on young people's futures. It is vital that we stand ready to offer support, particularly for our most vulnerable, which is why I'm pleased to announce today that we will increase the school clothing and footwear grant from £110 to £140, and announce that we will be the first council in the UK to introduce an early years clothing and footwear grant for eligible children. What an amazing achievement this is. Extending this grant to early years children will ensure that those most vulnerable have that extra support they need to ensure their children have the best start in life. Allied to the groundbreaking Club 365 programme and the North Lanarkshire Child Payment, it is clear that this administration is placing its faith in our young people as we seek to recover from the pandemic. But Provost, just as important as our young people are, our elderly and vulnerable are very much the same. This pandemic has affected us all, but our older population have often bore the brunt of this deadly virus, which is why we're investing £4 million in adult social care services to ensure the council continues to support people to live healthy, safe and independent lives after the pandemic. Provost, as you will see from our budget, with no sign of council being given the powers they need to properly serve their communities, this administration has had to innovate in order to kickstart our COVID recovery. Other measures in our budget today will build on the legacy of this administration. Provost, we have the most ambitious council house building programme in Scotland, with 5,000 new homes to be built by 2035. And today we're announcing over 200 million of investment in this programme over the next 5 years. This is in addition to the 350 million we'll invest in our existing home to make sure they're up to standard. Last year we kick-started our Community Investment Fund, which will see new facilities for every town across North Lanarkshire. This year we're extending that funding. That's why the Policy and Strategy Committee in March will be investing 500 million to take our plans to the next level. This record level investment will support and kickstart North Lanarkshire's economy after the COVID-19 pandemic and signals to our communities the first phase of North Lanarkshire's long-term, place-shaping, community-led transformation. Provost, whether it's building on the progress so far or innovating to find new solutions to our problems we face after the pandemic, this budget I'm seconding today is a COVID recovery budget for all of North Lanarkshire. As the leader said, it would be easy to just focus on the day job, as we're often told to do. But with COVID-19 yet to appear in our rear-view mirror, doing the day job is not enough. Provost, this budget today vindicates the previous decisions of this Labour administration. It leaves us in a position to kickstart North Lanarkshire's recovery from the clutches of COVID-19, protect lives and livelihoods, and offers an ambitious vision for the future despite the challenges of the past year. Provost, I second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gallagher, you've indicated you want to come in. Is it to move an amendment?
It is, Provost, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you want to move it now then.
I'm just sending that now, Provost. Just give me one moment.
Sorry, Provost, my screen's froze there.
On you go.
Thank you, Provost. Before I present the Conservative Group budget, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all council staff for their hard work and dedication as we continue to fight against COVID-19. In addition to all council officers who are involved in the budget process, I also offer my thanks. It has been a challenging year both financially and operationally, and the team has gone above and beyond to ensure political groups are prepared for today's meeting. COVID-19 has significantly impacted the communities we represent as councillors, and it has changed the way we communicate and conduct council business. I echo the comments made by previous speakers in relation to the loss we have suffered across our communities, and we need to ensure that future decisions relate to COVID recovery. Unfortunately, despite the incredible work carried out by the Council in order to support people and businesses, North Lanarkshire Council has received yet another devastating cut from the Scottish Government. Over the next 3 years, the Council will need to make £57 million worth of savings. Given North Lanarkshire Council has had its budget slashed by over £331 million over the last 14 years, it cannot take more cuts on top of the additional financial pressures which will take place as we recover from the pandemic. The Scottish Government has had every opportunity this year to deliver fair funding for North Lanarkshire. After all, when you compare the Scottish Government's own budget, which has increased by over 9%, Scottish councils will see an increase of less than 1%. To put this into context, the Scottish Government's budget has increased from £40.5 billion in 2020-21 to £44.1 billion in 21-22. This shows that whilst the UK Government delivers for Scotland, the SNP continues to fail our communities by not passing on the total benefit to councils. Since October last year, the Conservative Group has joined other political groups to form a sounding board which enabled council officers to give us financial updates together. This is the first year since 2017 that all political groups have attended this meeting, and I actually thought the SNP was beginning to show some maturity. However, when I looked at the Motherwell Times 2 weeks ago, there was Councillor Johnson once again suggesting that the SNP won't work with the Conservatives. I find this statement incredulous, as they were quite happy to receive our support during the Education Committee on Tuesday. I have no doubt that when the SNP make their contribution, they will once again try to pretend they have not worked with the Conservative group in an attempt to gain favour from their hardcore nationalist supporters. When looking at the overall budget picture today, SNP Scottish Government cuts have left North Lanarkshire Council with a revised budget gap of £14 million. However, due to previous savings taken in February last year, loan debt reprofiling and base budget savings totalling £447,000, this has resulted in a surplus of £8.2 million. Although my group is relieved that North Lanarkshire Council does not need to make frontline service cuts, we are worried about the savings which will need to be made in future years. That is why I'm using this platform to once again call on the Scottish Government to provide fair funding for local government. I'm also challenging the SNP group to call on the Finance Secretary to fund North Lanarkshire Council properly. I will now take you through the Conservative group budget which is before you today. As you can see from the 8.2 surplus, the Conservative group has chosen to protect culture and leisure services which total £3.7 million. Given many of these facilities have been essential in the rollout of the vaccine, we believe that now is not the right time to look at the overall estate. However, as you will recall, the Conservative group was against bringing the ALIO in-house, as we were concerned about what this would mean for the services it currently provides. By the looks of it, difficult decisions will need to be taken by the Council at some point once this ALIO is brought in-house. When looking at the remainder of the surplus, our group agreed 5 main priorities. These were areas of concern raised by our constituents and relate to services which have been previously cut or have lacked significant investment for a number of years. These are as follows: the introduction of a fund to tackle fly tipping, which is a blight across North Lanarkshire. The Conservative group has always been at the forefront of tackling fly tipping throughout the local authority area, and we have set aside £170,000 to support our communities and to clean up North Lanarkshire. To reverse the community alarm charge totalling £1.4 million. To reinstate an antisocial behaviour service for residents in private houses across North Lanarkshire, as there has been a stark increase in cases over the lockdown period. To bring back some festive cheer to our town centres by reinstating Christmas lighting and trees, which totals £150,000. To introduce provision to help tackle the stark increase in vermin sightings across North Lanarkshire. We have listened to the concerns raised by all residents following the cuts agreed last year, and it's imperative that this is made a priority of the Council this year. This fund totals £160,000. Lastly, we have noticed an increase in the number of potholes across the local authority area. We have agreed that the remainder of the surplus to be placed into a pothole fund, which will be topped up should North Lanarkshire Council receive a revised budget settlement. You will notice that the figures I have read out leave a reserve amount totalling £2.246 million. The reason for this is that the Conservative group budget would ensure investment in these areas for at least 2 years. This allows services to carry out much needed work to help tackling these growing issues. Following the 2-year period, it would be a council decision whether or not these services are cut or continued. By splitting our budget over 2 years, it also prevents an additional cost pressure from being added to the next year's finances. Provost, the Conservative Group has highlighted 5 budget priorities today, and we urge other groups to consider these proposals. I formally propose the Conservative Group budget motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's seconding your amendment?
Thank you, Provost. Sandy Watson here. I'll second the Conservative amendment, please. Thank you.
Sandy was Sandy.
Apologies, first of all, for having the camera off because I've got connectivity problems. So it seems to work a wee bit better when the camera is not on, but I'll try the camera on later on. I'm pleased to be in a position today
Councillor Watson, I'm sorry, I don't know if others can, but I can't hear you. Councillor Watson? Andrews, Councillor Watson, having a
Councillor Watson
problem.
isn't on mute, so I assume it's a connectivity problem at his end. He's still shown as in the meeting, but with obviously can't hear us, or we hear him.
Councillor Watson, unfortunately, nobody can hear you at the moment. Councillor Watson, what I'm going to do is move on to the SNP budget motion, which Councillor Humes indicated is there. Happy to let you in at a later stage with your speech, because I'm conscious that it's down to the connection problems. So we'll move on to Councillor Hume. Councillor Hume, you're going to be presenting the SNP budget motion?
Yes, I am.
If you want to go ahead.
Thanks, Provost. I concur with Councillor Logue's and Gallagher's comment about the Council's response to the COVID pandemic, and I go into that in more detail in my budget speech. In the last year, everyone in the country has faced unprecedented challenges because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whether it is people in work and having to make significant changes to their working practices, or people who have been furloughed, or worse, lost their jobs. Everyone has been impacted in some fashion. This has also had significant impact on the Council across the whole spectrum of activities, from officer strategic plans to individual roles and working practices. Everyone has been impacted on some level. Is that Councillor Watts coming in there yet? Okay. Everyone in the Council has
Councillor Hume, just continue your speech and we'll let Councillor Watson in after the...
Yes, yes, it just, I think he didn't know he was being overheard there. And he's doing it again, Provost, and he's off
Andrew,
again.
could you maybe mute Councillor Watson and let him know that what's happening?
Yeah, I've just muted Councillor Watson.
Right, okay,
and
thanks.
We'll send him a message and let him know if it's happening. Right, Councillor Hume, continue.
Everyone in the Council has responded to the challenge, from home working to redeployment and other changes to services, to ensure the best possible support was provided to our communities. Almost every committee report had items that relate to the way COVID has affected services, and members have expressed their admiration and gratitude to staff on the way they have stepped up to manage the situation. I also welcome the Council's commitment to provide extra support for staff who may have issues dealing with these changes. Now is absolutely the time to do this, as we want everyone to be able to get back to normal working when the restrictions are lifted. On behalf of the SNP Group, I would like to formally, at this full Council meeting, thank everyone working for the council for the exceptional way they have responded to the situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe and hope that all other councillors share this sentiment, and I would be delighted if senior officers passed this information on to staff. We really do appreciate it, and I don't want staff to think that members don't appreciate it. So if that could be a formal recognition to that, that would be good. In terms of the budget position, taking the figures from the finance team's briefing note, I'm sure everyone appreciates the extra revenue support provided by the Scottish Government for the 21-22 financial year, amounting to over £12 million. Also, the increase in ring-fenced revenue funding, amounting to over £51 million, is very welcome, and providing over £4.6 million to cover a 3% increase in council tax means a net zero increase to our council taxpayers and brings some welcome financial relief to them. It is also worthwhile mentioning the significant financial support given by the Scottish Government to cover additional costs to the council of dealing with COVID. There has been some uncertainty around the timing and level of support, which presented inevitable challenges to the financial team in balancing the books. The emergency budget that turned out not to be needed is a clear example of that. However, we are all aware that the Scottish Government has confirmed more money has been made available, and we wait with interest to find out the amount that will be allocated to North Lanarkshire. We spent some time debating the most effective way to utilise the funds that are available. We decided that we would allocate money to those service areas that we felt would provide some additional support to all our communities to reduce the impact of all the COVID restrictions. To this end, we have decided to reverse the previous budget decisions in the following areas: festive lighting in towns and villages, environmental protection and trading standards, grass cutting and maintenance on private land, grit bin reduction. The total value of these changes is £628,000 and are on a one-off basis only, but an ongoing provision of these services should form part of the community boards and participatory budgeting discussions. We understand some actions have already taken place to deliver savings in some of these areas, but we have been assured making this money available to the services will have a positive impact in areas like fly tipping, CCTV camera provision and refuse collections, etc. We accept all other previously agreed savings options and acknowledge their contribution to the overall financial savings requirement. As I previously stated, our primary goal in deciding our budget proposals was to utilise the surplus in a way that supports our communities in these challenging times, dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. In keeping with this objective, we are proposing to reverse the projected cuts to CLNL on a recurring basis. The figures related to this option are shown in the SNP Financial Outlook sheet, which forms part of our overall budget document. This covers in detail the financial position for all our proposals. It indicates that the figure required to reverse the savings options is £3.742 million per annum. This can be funded for both years from the 21-22 surplus. The impact of a year's COVID restrictions on physical and mental health is well documented and understood. A recent survey of young people reported that 63% felt the current situation had a negative impact on them. What is unknown is how significantly it has impacted our communities as the reduced opportunity to have proper medical assessments done in these areas. CLNL facilities and services will play a key role in assisting people to get back to normal. Evidence from previous reopening of the facilities after the first lockdown proved that people are keen to use the facilities when they are available. We will, however, wait the results of the CLNL insourcing review currently being carried out to determine how we will respond to future CLNL financial requirements beyond these 2 years. We also accept the base budget adjustments that deliver a total of £10,447,000. As I said, all our figures are in the document. Andrew, have you sent that out?
Yes, I have, Councillor Hume.
Right, okay. The pages are all there if anyone wants to look at it in detail. I've covered most of the figures in the speech, and I would like to propose this budget motion to the council.
Thank you very much. If Councillor Watson's back on, could we take his seconding and then we'll take you, whoever's seconding yours, Councillor Hume. Councillor Watson, are you able to get back on?
Provost, I've had to put Councillor Watson out of the meeting so that officers can try and sort out his connection problem. So he's not here at the moment.
That's fine. Councillor Hume, who's seconding your budget?
Councillor Jordan. Provost, we all heard the councillor seconding the motion. Perhaps that's acceptable at this stage and you can bring him in later to complete his comments on the Conservative motion.
Yeah, I will let Councillor Watson back in once he gets back on. So
yes.
Councillor Linden
yes.
said it's Councillor Linden.
Thanks, Provost. Welcome the opportunity to second the SNP budget today as the Deputy Leader of the group here in North Lanarkshire. Provost, our budget today is one which is delivered with COVID recovery at its heart, that stands up for the communities and people of North Lanarkshire against exceptional circumstances as we continue to battle a pandemic that has shaken our society and economy to the core, and as we face the harmful impacts of Brexit, not only here in North Lanarkshire, but across Scotland. I echo the comments of the Leader of the Council in respect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our thoughts are indeed with all of those across our community who have been lost to this virus and to the many, many others who have been impacted. We will all have our own personal experiences and stories too. I wish also to reiterate my group's thanks to the staff of North Lanarkshire Council for their support in all that they have done and continue to do, and to Elaine and her staff in the Finance Department for their help in particular to prepare for today. Thank you to all of our staff at North Lanarkshire Council, Health and Social Care and NHS Lanarkshire. And turning to our budget today, it is set within the local government settlement for 2021-22 firmly in mind, and indeed the wider SNP Scottish Government budget, a budget which has continued in this year to provide local government with a funding settlement that is both fair and affordable. Indeed, local authorities will receive a total funding package of £11.6 billion in 21-22 through the local government finance settlement, and that package includes an increase in day-to-day revenue of £335.6 million or 3.1% on last year's settlement. That £335.6 million delivers 94.8 of a general uplift, £59 million of expansion in early learning and childcare, £73.6 million to support investment in health and social care, and £11.3 million added additional discretionary housing support, and so much more. Taken in the round, the Scottish Government budget outlines substantial additional investment in our NHS and education, local government and other vital frontline services, with total investment increasing by £3.8 billion this year. Strong foundations for the year ahead and as we move towards recovery. And as we know that North Lanarkshire, through this budget, this SNP budget, will realise the benefits of that. With the specific measures outlined in our budget, we prioritise recovery from COVID-19 and protecting places and spaces, ensuring they're fit for local people. I want to reiterate some of the contributions of Councillor Hume for those in the virtual chamber and to those who may be listening at home. Thanks to the SNP Scottish Government alongside Council Advanced Action, this budget is delivered and balanced with a surplus of £8.2 million here in North Lanarkshire. This financial position has allowed us to reverse some of the devastating cuts agreed by the Labour administration, supported by the Tories in 2019 and 20, and for other cuts we've mitigated them by delaying their implementation until this pandemic ends and we recover. We will deliver an extreme weather policy review that will deliver a policy fit for our communities. We've heard local people's views on the Council's extreme weather policy and plans. Therefore, our halting of rationalisation of grit bins until we undertake this review and deliver on the needs of local people is a step forwards towards improvement. COVID-19 means people are spending more time out in their local community, and we want to see people using their environment. Therefore, our SNP budget will deliver a delay to the implementation of the policy that ceases grass cutting in areas that require factoring until the COVID-19 pandemic subsides, to ensure that the focus is on enjoying outdoor space during recovery. As we continue through and emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, we want to create an environment and spaces in our community that is all about local people. Recent decisions by the Labour administration have seen drastic cuts to trading standards, environmental protection and animal welfare, all whilst raising the cost of special uplifts. Their budget in 2020-21 approved savings of £234,000 over 2 years. That's impacted on the Council's ability to deal with fly tipping, fly posting, dog fouling, anti-scam initiatives, to name just a few. Our budget will cancel the savings this year and instead reintroduce that £234,000 of funding to deliver improved experiences for local people across North Lanarkshire as they continue to live, learn and work here. Promise 2020 was a dark year for all of us. With the pandemic, with loneliness, with fear and worry, against that backdrop we recognise the importance of light. Whether that be metaphorical with the glimmers of hope we now see in 2021 with our vaccination delivery programme, or whether that be with festive lighting that illuminates our towns and villages. In 2020, we saw these being provided in some communities by incredible community activists. I pay tribute to all of them today on behalf of the SNP. This action demonstrated the power of community. In December 2020, SNP councillors passed a motion at full council with cross-party support that ensures that festive lighting in our towns and villages would be a matter which our communities team would support communities with, and ensure that we considered how to use our participatory budgeting approach to include the devolution of 1% of council funding decisions to communities. But in 2021, we want to give back to the community and build in more time for the sustainable future for festive lighting in towns and villages. Accordingly, whilst this work continues, our budget will deliver full funding for festive lighting in not only all of our towns in North Lanarkshire, but in every village too. The COVID-19 pandemic has seen the sheer importance of culture and leisure services drawn into sharp focus. Due to their expansive capacity and the ability to deliver throughput, the role they are playing in the delivery of the COVID vaccination is crucial to ending this pandemic. The Labour administration in 2020-21 delivered a budget which forced savings of over £5 million to culture and leisure in North Lanarkshire over 21-22 and 22-23. The SNP budget rejected these savings then, and we do so again now. It is somewhat laughable that Labour come today to pretend that they are the saviours of community facilities when it was them that introduced these savings in the first place. We would not be in this position if it wasn't for Labour's choices. So not only does the SNP budget deliver a halt on these devastating cuts, but we are introducing a permanent reversal of over £3.7 million to savings to culture and leisure, cancelling 2020-21 and 21-22 now and into the future, acknowledging that culture and leisure has a future to play in our ambition to deliver a sustainable future for these services in North Lanarkshire. Through our revenue investment into capital expenditure, we shall deliver investment into our Community Investment Fund. The fund shall be used to realise the potential for North Lanarkshire, investing in new schools, new community facilities, new leisure facilities. That's the equivalent of 1% of council tax, which, as we know, is being fully funded by Scottish Government in terms of the council tax freeze. Thanks to the SNP Scottish Government, as a result of the local government finance settlement, North Lanarkshire is enjoying a 3.1% increase in total revenue funding, and even after adjusting for ring-fence grants that my colleagues do not wish to mention, directed spending on issues like educational attainment gap or on housing, there is still a 1% increase on core grant. Of course, it is never enough. Accordingly, our SNP budget delivers on all of these areas: community centres, outdoor spaces, winter policy, Christmas lighting, budgeting for the future. And there is that point of budgeting for the future that I want to highlight. Today, these parties have proposed spends that are a one-off basis, that will not continue. They are election bonanzas. We are serious about our promises to local people. Therefore, we're promising to and propose to take £3.863 million into next year's budget to continue to mitigate the worst impacts of Tory austerity and, importantly, to continue our actions to support the local community. We will deploy that resource alongside a future budget settlement from the SNP Scottish Government if they are returned to Holyrood, and we very much hope they are, to continue to deliver ambitious budgets for the people of North Lanarkshire, investing in education, in justice, in housing, in health and so on. All of our actions are part of our golden thread of supporting our community throughout COVID-19 recovery, protecting places and spaces for people to enjoy that supports our NHS via incident reduction in terms of winter planning and mental health and wellbeing in terms of outdoor space. And coming to a conclusion, Provost, North Lanarkshire's SNP group have used this council budget process to shine a light on the significant benefit of a strong SNP government at Holyrood, working with North Lanarkshire Council to deliver for our communities. Indeed, the record of the SNP Scottish Government delivering for North Lanarkshire is vast, is varied, and frankly, vital. Whether it be our groundbreaking Scottish Child Payment supporting those families who need it most, or to a record investment in the National Health Service that sees NHS Lanarkshire's 21-22 budget being 1.2 billion, an increase of 18 million or 1.4% from last year, and with staffing under the SNP and NHS Lanarkshire being up 28%. Or education, where in 2020-21 North Lanarkshire received 9.1 million for closing the attainment gap, benefiting 117 primary schools and 23 secondary schools. That's increasing to 9.5 million this year under the SNP. And on business, where between 2011-12 and 2019, non-domestic rate relief has saved ratepayers in North Lanarkshire around £230 million. These are just some of the many achievements of the SNP in North Lanarkshire. Our record both in Holyrood and in this council is one to be championed, and today this budget delivers yet further on our continuing commitment to listening to local people, to championing the views of local people, and delivering for local people, now and always. Colleagues, support the SNP budget. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you. Is Councillor Watson been able to get back on?
He hasn't, I'm afraid, yet, Provost.
Councillor Gallagher, we did hear him seconding your motion. Has somebody got the availability to second it and deliver his speech for him?
I mean, to be honest, Provost, I mean, I'm quite happy to go with the seconding from Councillor Watson, because I believe that was a formal seconding, if that's appropriate.
I heard, and I'm sure everybody else heard the seconding of that. It was just I'm consciously prepared to speak at the meeting, and I didn't want to rule him out. But if he can't get back on at the moment, I would like to just continue the meeting. I'll let him contribute to the meeting and the debate later on if he does want to.
That's great, Provost. I think we should just continue the meeting. Thank you.
Right, we've now got everybody's budget proposals out. I would suggest that we take a half-hour break out room for everybody to have a chance to read over the budgets, because it's very difficult to read over the budgets at the same time as trying to keep an eye on the screen. Is there anybody opposed to a half-hour breakout? Nobody's put up an opposition to that. Andrew, could you arrange for breakout rooms for half an hour for each of the groupings?
Yes, Provost. I'll place all members in breakout rooms. Just to let you know that if you find you're in the wrong breakout room, I don't think any member will be, just email me and I'll pull you out and put you into the correct breakout room. When we get to 30 minutes, I'll end the breakout session and members will have a 60-second countdown before you come back in. You should have a countdown timer on your breakout session so you know how long you've been in. And for any members of the public viewing, I'm going to stop the stream now and recommence it in 30 minutes. So I'm now going to commence the breakout rooms.
Thank you very much.